Hello. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday. It's time for us to speak up and stand up without violence, of course. Our children need our help. So I'm going to play something here. I want everybody to watch. Also, please look at the description for this video. There's the link not only to the video, but some important information that should help you as well. I recommend everybody watch this, get a paper and pen, maybe take some notes. God bless y'all, and here we go.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin. And we're going to do something here that I don't think is typically done on television, not even on this program. Before I bring on our two great guests, Congressman Jim Jordan and Professor Paul Kengor, I want to have a little chat with you. Look what's going on in our school systems. Look at the abuse our children are taking. We have federal bureaucrats, whether they're medical bureaucrats or educational bureaucrats, telling our children that they're going to wear masks, even though the science doesn't support it in the least. Even though what the science does show us, it's having an incredibly dilatory effect on the psychology of that generation. Now, if we don't defend our children and we don't stand up for our children, then what use are we? We didn't turn our children over to the government. We didn't turn them over to school systems. We didn't turn them over to the teachers' unions. And that's what I want to talk about briefly this evening. American Marxism. I want to thank you. Well over 600,000 copies sold in a little over 2 weeks. It's not because my name's on this. It's not because I'm on Fox or on radio. There's a lot of people on Fox, on radio with books and so forth. Why is this a runaway bestseller? It's not because of me. It's because of you. It's the contents of the book, American Marxism. And at the end of the book, the last chapter, I have an entire section called We Choose Liberty. And there's a section within that section called Education. Now, we need to address this. I am thrilled that parents are starting to show up in numbers at school board meetings, but they're abused at these school board meetings. The entrenched unions, the entrenched educational bureaucracy and administrators, the school board members, this cabal, they have no intention of doing what we demand. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year for these institutions. They call it public education. Yet we have no say on anything that takes place. We don't even have transparency. Well, that's got an end. And I got a plan. I've got a plan. And it's not just for parents. It's for those of us who care about this country. It's about taxpayers. It's about grandparents. It's about all of us, whether you have children or not. And it's this. A couple of the things generally. We need to adopt the strategies of the left in some respects. They have the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. That is an anti-Semitic movement intended to destroy the state of Israel. Well, we don't intend to do that, hardly. But we can use boycott, divestment, and sanctions too against institutions that are undermining our country and destroying the minds of our children. This BDS movement. We can apply it against school systems. More importantly, we can apply it against the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, and their state and local affiliates. What else can we do? We have the power of the Freedom of Information Act in every state. We ought to be using that act in numbers. Hundreds of people in every school district should be filing Freedom of Information Act requests. For what? How do they hire teachers? How do they promote teachers? What exactly is in this contract that they have with the teachers union? You can FOIA the texts and the emails and other forms of communications of the union representatives, teachers in these schools, assuming those computers and laptops and telephones have been given to them or are being leased by them by the school system. That's covered by FOIA too. It's time to dig in, not just to come in from the outside and protest. I'm all for it, but it's time for us to get tactical in what we do. How are these budgets decided? How are these budgets decided? These school board meetings, they have these executive sessions. Why are they having executive sessions? What's discussed in the executive sessions? And ladies and gentlemen, lawsuits can be brought. Obviously, they're expensive, but they're legal groups throughout the country. I have links and contacts throughout the last chapter of the book. What? The Civil Rights Act in 1964 amended education amendments in 1972. Your children are not supposed to be subjected to a hostile educational environment that preaches, that indoctrinates about racial stereotypes. There's some of these suits going on now. They ought to be all across the country. Offense. We need to become litigious, just like they are. What else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if your kid is being taught by a teacher who is teaching them Marxism and Louis Farrakhanism dressed up as critical race theory, you go into that school board and you tell them, or better yet, the principal, I don't want my kid being taught by that teacher. Period. What kind of training materials are being given to the teachers? You have a right to FOIA that information and get it too. Cloward and Piven, overwhelm the system, get all the information, find out what's going on. But here's the other shoe that should drop. Many years ago, when I was president of Landmark Legal Foundation, we have a wonderful president there now, and I am the chairman, we filed complaints with the Internal Revenue Service against the National Education Association and a number of its state affiliates. A lot of them. You can do this too. You don't have to be a lawyer to do this, but again, there are legal groups who will help you. It is time to liberate our school systems. It is time to prevent them from being the playthings of these Marxist movements in the Democrat Party. It's time that we start subsidizing these movements and the Democrat Party. Here's a complaint that was filed many years ago. Many of you may not know this, but the unions are required to file a Form 990. That is an internal revenue tax form. And they are required to provide that information on their websites to make it publicly available. If they don't, they're violating the Internal Revenue Code, and you can still contact them and demand a copy of it. And what about that form? They're explicitly required to provide the government with certain political expenditures that they're using. So it's public to you to know what they're doing with the monies, what they're doing with the dues. If all such political expenditures and activities are fully accounted for and reported to the IRS as taxable income, what we found at Landmark Legal Foundation, it's not. You have indirect contributions, you have all kinds of in-kind contributions that aren't reported. Political expenditures are not limited to money transactions. They include the cost of using, in part or whole, any facilities, personnel, equipment, supplies, automobiles that are not really supposed to be used for political purposes. Now, how do you find out all this information? FOIA. How else do you find out all this information? The internet. A lot of times they confess to the things that they're doing, even though they may violate the Internal Revenue Code. The time spent by an organization's employees directing volunteer campaign efforts or appearing on behalf of candidates must be accounted for by the organization if these activities are being subsidized by general revenues. Mark, this is too much information. No, Mark, this is great. Look at the newspaper articles. Look at their press releases. See how much time they're involved in political activities, where they're coordinating with the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, almost never, or they're coordinating with other unions and so forth. That is to be reported on their tax returns, and rarely is. The NEA doesn't report, we recorded political activity on IRS Form 990, but they're supposed to. And you go on. The point is, you're trying to also show, not only are they not reporting all the monies of general operating funds that they're using for political purposes, thereby violating their tax status, what else? These expenditures demonstrate the NEA's use of tax-exempt resources to support political activities. It shows the NEA funnels general revenues from its own treasury to state affiliates, which in turn use those funds in support of political activities. You can look for this. They have to report every plug nickel that they're using for political purposes. They're very sloppy. They're very arrogant. The other thing is, on their websites and in their press releases, they tell you about all these political things that they're doing. Get copies of that information. Compare it to their tax returns. I have said in this book, we should create community committees. Now, in these community committees, maybe you'll have a local accountant, maybe you have a local lawyer, maybe you'll just have people who are earnest and want to dig into this. Start comparing what they're doing to what they're reporting. The information's out there. Nobody looks at it. The NEA and its state affiliates must comply fully with IRS reporting requirements, as we pointed out. Here's the conclusion. IRS enforcement of the Internal Revenue Code enables the public, NEA members, and non-member fee payers to receive accurate and complete information about the NEA's political activities. This goes for the AFT and all their state and local affiliates. The evidence presented in the complaint that we filed, we argued, is that they failed to disclose the full extent of their political activities and expenditures as required by the Internal Revenue Code. Now, I'm not going to go through this and read it all. You could probably go to the Landmark Legal Foundation website. All that said, you have enormous tools at your fingertips. Enormous tools. Think outside the box. I help you in American Marxism at the back of the book. This is just with respect to the unions. They have thumbed their noses at you. They said, we're teaching critical race theory, whether you like it or not. We're pushing this Marxist agenda, whether you like it or not. I'm sure they're working with the CDC to require your kids to wear face masks. Why am I sure of that? Because they did that 2 months ago. Kids that shouldn't be wearing face masks. These unions are at war with your kids. They're at war with parents. They're at war with our communities. We're subsidizing the whole damn thing to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We don't run our school systems. They run the school systems. And who are they? You don't agree with them. I'm not talking about every individual teacher. I'm talking about the institution of these public sector teacher unions. They are the enemy of public education. They fight school choice in the inner city. They demand tenure even for teachers who shouldn't get it. They demand pay raises even when they're not working. And I could go down the list. Now, I know I'm not going to be the most popular individual in the world when it comes to teachers, but I want teachers to understand I'm not attacking you. Many of you don't even want to be associated with these unions. What does Joe Biden want to do? He wants to get rid of right to work laws. So in every state, these public sector employees are unionized and individual teachers can't break free from them. My point is there's a lot we can do. There is a lot with litigation, with FOIA, with protests, with the Internal Revenue Service. There is a lot we can do. And getting those cameras in the classrooms, that is critical. The next time that contract comes up with the teacher union, you want those cameras in the classroom. And if they threaten to strike, and if they're in a non-strike state, they should be fired. And if they threaten to strike and they're in a state that allows them to strike, then move your kids, at least temporarily. This is a battle worth fighting and a battle worth winning. And so this is just one little area I wanted to discuss. It's tough to do it in 10 minutes. You can check it out yourself in American Marxism, but we don't have to take it. These organizations that we subsidize directly and indirectly, they're supposed to work for us. We're not supposed to work for them. Do you like the kind of education your children are getting? Do you like the fact that test scores are dropping like an anchor in the ocean? Do you like the fact that they're being taught radical ideologies? I mean, incredibly radical ideologies, and that the teachers union tells them you're going to have to take it, whether you like it or not. And then your tax bill comes every year, typically property taxes, and you have to pay it. And if you don't pay it, they're going to take your home away. Folks, let's claw our way back.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
All right. Well, I think that says a lot. And it is time. We need to help our children, our grandchildren, even if you're not a parent or a grandchild. Are these the values that you want children learning for the future? I don't know. I can't answer that for you. But I do know that for me, it's so far from what our children need. So step up, speak up. You're not alone. It may feel like it, but until you speak, you won't know just how many agree with you. I love you. God bless you, and have a blessed day.